I'm Joanie Zier-Poole. Thank you for joining me for Can You Spare a Square?
So now we'll talk about the thread. Here again, we go back to selecting the correct supplies for the desired result. A thread could be chosen to call attention to itself, or in our case, I really want the thread to hide. For our project, I chose a fine, very lightweight thread in a color that matches the fabric. The motif outline hides in the shadow, allowing the puffiness of the motifs to catch the light. The weight of the thread affects the length of your stitch. Using the appropriate thread allows us to form tiny stitches that make up nicely curved lines of our motifs and stippling. If heavier thread is used, the quilt surface becomes cluttered with thread, which I find objectionable. These are my two favorites: 100 weight 2-ply silk by YLI, or The Bottom Line by Superior Threads, which is a 2-ply polyester. These selections are not sold in most large chain fabric stores, so ask at your local quilt shop or check with a machine dealer, and then also use the suggestions for purchasing online in the resource area of this DVD. For this project, I suggest that you use the same thread in the bobbin that you've put in the top of the machine. If you only purchase this small spool of silk thread, however, only fill the bobbin halfway. And speaking of filling the bobbins, it's really important to take the time to fill your bobbin evenly. You cannot expect perfectly formed stitches and perfect tension if the bobbin is not filled correctly. Watch the bobbin while you're filling it and fill it at half speed. If necessary, hand guide it to fill in neatly stacked rows. Here's some helpful information to know when we're talking about thread tension. Did you know that the way the thread is wound on the spool indicates how you're supposed to place the spool on the machine as the manufacturer intended? Straight wound or stacked spools have thread that is wound around the spool in a continuous straight row, stacked one on another. These spools are intended to stand up on the vertical pin at the top of your machine. The spool can freely rotate, and the thread unwinds straight from the side directly into the thread path without any waves or curls. These are usually shorter and wider spools. Cross-wound thread is usually on a spool that is long and narrow, with the thread crisscrossing the spool. Now this is intended to lie down on the horizontal spool pin and to unwind over the top end of the spool. The spool stays stationary and should be held in place with a spool cap to keep it from sliding off the pin. And if you're using one of these large spools, which are really economical, just put this on a thread stand that will stand next to the machine. For whatever project you're making, the needle type and size are determined by the thread that's chosen. With finer thread, use a small needle. These are size 70 sharp or microtex for this project. Check out my website, heirloomquiltingdesigns.com, where you can see my contest quilts where I've used the heirloom machine quilting techniques.